Bueno, vamos a grabar aquí y muy buenos días, muy buenos días. Hoy es el día de practicar, es el primer día de practicar verbos. Today's our really big verb practice day, but we're going to start off with kind of wrapping things up about our adjective practice. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the homework and the answer key for the homework for adjectives. Practice that a little bit. Again, all these skills are really things that don't expect you will be the master of it all immediately. It really takes a lot of time. I mean, in a proper lesson on adjectives, you would take probably a good 5 to 6 days to practice that. And, you know, if I were in a classroom with kids, it's consecutive days to really imprint that. So know that even if you don't feel like, wow, I can't remember all of this forever, I will make mistakes. Well, yes, we will make mistakes. It is okay to make mistakes, but the more and more you hear stories and listen to videos and such, the more it will start to sink in. So it does take time. You know, you're not going to look at a rule for how to use adjectives and immediately I will apply it every single time correctly. You know, expect to make mistakes, as little kids do when they, you know, learn whatever language they're growing up with. That is what happens. So we're going to start with a warm-up with some examples, and then we're going to move to the tarea, the homework, the answer key, and I'm just going to share what that is in case you need to look for it. Okay, esta página aquí, this page here, is what we're going to see the answer key for, and this was the homework on what do I do to that word in parentheses to make it the right form of an adjective so that it agrees with, is in the same form as the noun it describes. And that is the initial challenge, that we in English are not used to taking an adjective and changing it into multiple forms, okay? But Spanish will do that. So if you need time to, if you printed it out or if you typed it up, we'll come back to that in a minute. We're going to start with a warm-up. Vamos a empezar. We're going to take a look at some examples, because the more examples you see, the more it will start to click. A good rule of thumb, by the way, as you get used to adjectives and later on in class, because I want to spend a lot of time on verbs, most of our time on verbs, both those topics, you know, I take equal amount of time for practice. You know, sometimes you may feel like suddenly, oh my gosh, I've seen this example for the 50th time, and suddenly the light goes on. That is a normal reaction. So, para que sepan, just so you know. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Y vamos a ver, we're going to see, vamos a ver, we're going to see muchos ejemplos de cómo se usan los adjetivos, how adjectives are used. Okay, por ejemplo, so adjectives will have to look at the noun they are describing, and they take their cue from, they take their form from that noun in terms of, is it masculine or feminine? Is it singular or onesie item or plural, more than one item? Si yo quiero hablar de Will Smith, if I want to talk about Will Smith, oh, I know this is before the famous Oscar slap thing. So, okay. Hay tres actores. There are 3 actors. Hay 3 actores en la página. Will Smith es muy cómico. Will Smith is very funny. I know he's done more drama recently, but, you know, started in that comedic vein. Will Smith es muy cómico. Cómico, funny, comical, amusing, would have to look at who it's talking about. Will Smith, masculine and singular. Okay, Will Smith es muy cómico. Pero si hablamos de los tres actores aquí, if we talk about the three actors here, podemos decir, we can say todos, all of them. Todos means everybody there. All of them, todos. Todos son famosos. They're all famous. Todos son famosos. And famosos, just as the son is plural to modify all, if I'm talking about all of those guys and it's a mixed guy and gal group or all male group, it needs a masculine plural form for the word famous. Todos son famosos. And the way we make that plural is very simple. Famoso, famous, ends in an O. All we do is slap on the S, right? See? Okay. Vale. Otro ejemplo. Aquí. Uy, 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 uy. Si hablamos, if we want to talk about all of these guys. Uy, momentito. Tengo que arreglarme la posición de las fotos. I need to mix around my pictures here. Aquí. Bien. No. Orden. Frente. Al frente. Ay, no. Al frente. I need to get him out in front. Forward. No funciona. Front. Frente. Aquí. Okay. Si hablamos de los tres, if we talk about the three of them, we might say things like, ellos son fuertes. They are fuerte, strong. Fuerte does not end in an O, but it's a vowel. So again, I just slap on an S, right? Fuertes, because it does not end in O, can be used equally for masculine and feminine, but I do need to make it plural. So, ellos son fuertes. Ellos no son débiles. They're not weak. Débil es weak. Débil does not end in an O, like famoso. So débil, again, débil will be the same for masculine and feminine, okay? But if I need to make it plural, instead of just S at the end, it's ES at the end, right? Ellos no son débiles. They are not weak. And I don't know why that's capitalizing that. Oh, because it was on a separate line. Okay. Ellos son heroicos. They are
Heroes.
heroic. Oh, not just heroes. Heroic. Yeah, these are adjectives. Heroic. Ellos son heroicos. Heroic. Okay, so there is one example. Okay. Si hablo de este hombre, if I want to talk about this guy, you know, it's hard to find actors that everybody knows at every age level. Wow. Chris Pratt es un poco gordo. Aquí, a la izquierda, on the left, see? Chris Pratt es un poco gordo. He's a little
Fat,
chubby there, see?
Yeah.
Fat, see? Aquí, a la derecha, on the right, Chris Pratt no es gordo, es delgado, es musculoso. Musculoso, he's muscular. All of those masculine singular because we're just talking about one guy, Chris Pratt. Okay. Por ejemplo, did I have something written? Oh, sí. If we use the word famoso, and if I talk about all three of these actors, even though the women outnumber the guys, it's going to go to this word, famosos. Ellos son famosos en Hollywood. See? En Hollywood, ellos son importantes. They are important. See, ellos son ricos. They are
Rich
people, right? If I took Jack Black out of that and we're only talking about the women, it would become ellas son famosas, ellas son importantes. Importantes would not be a different form. It would still be the same because masculine is feminine, right? Importante ends in e, not o. So I would just make it plural. Y ellas son ricas, if I were to talk about just the gals. Okay, aquí tenemos personas del mundo deportivo. We got people from the sports world. If we use words like atlético, rico, musculoso, hay tres hombres. There are three men here, ¿sí? Entonces, LeBron y Lionel, el señor Messi y Tom Brady, ellos son ricos, atléticos y musculosos. ¿Bien? Ok. Vale. Bueno, pero si hablamos de mujeres, if we talk about women, and it's an all-female group, we have to be aware of those adjectives turning into the feminine forms. Ellas son famosas. Ellas son atléticas. Ellas son musculosas. They are muscular. Okay. They are athletic. They are famous. Okay. Even if we talk about animals, animales, el caballo, horse, el caballo es rápido. The horse is fast. Because the word for squirrel happens to be a feminine word, if I want to say the squirrel is fast, it becomes la ardilla es rápida. Bien? Okay. Ardilla, squirrel is not one of those animals you pick up and look at the bottom of it and say, is this a boy, girl, a squirrel, or a girl squirrel? Because they're too fast and we just don't do that. Okay. Yeah. But some animal words do get specific masculine and feminine forms. Some do not. Ardilla is always ardilla. Los dos animales son rápidos. I use the word animales. Animal is el animal. So, los dos son rápidos. ¿Sí? La koala no es rápida, es lenta. A koala is slow. See? Bien? Okay, so that's our little warm-up. Again, the more you hear examples, the more you will get it. We're going to look at the answers for this. I'm going to highlight them. And then we'll put adjectives aside for a bit. We're only putting it aside in a small way because every time you get a listening video, you will hear adjectives over and over again. Okay, vamos a ver. Aquí tenemos las respuestas. Here we got the answers. La escuela es importante. Importante really doesn't change form because it ends in e, which is the same for masculine, feminine, right? La escuela is what we're looking at to match it up with. We're matching it up with las chicas. In número dos, las chicas. Las chicas son simpáticas. The girls are nice. Simpáticas, nice. Okay. Simpático, the basic word ends in an O. I need to make it feminine and plural because I'm describing las chicas. Okay. Marge Simpson tiene el pelo azul. Azul is really looking at the noun, not at Marge, but at pelo, hair, right?
Hair, right.
Okay.
Pelo. Okay.
Yeah.
So the important thing to know there is that we're not saying Marge is blue. Her hair is blue. We're
Okay.
describing el pelo. Okay. Bien. Okay. Las plumas, pens, son azules. Azul. The pens that you write with are blue. Okay. son azules. And plumas is feminine and more than one, but azul ends in a l sound.
that's
So
right.
I just slap on a plural, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Difícil means difficult or hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Los libros son difíciles. Los libros son difíciles. The books are hard. Okay. Difícil ends in an la sound. We just make it plural. Difíciles. Okay. Next, we got Italiano, Italian, a nationality describing word. Okay. Los carros Fiat son italianos.
Right.
Son italianos. Italiano ends in O, but we're talking about carros. So los carros son italianos. Okay. Next, we're describing, papas fritas. French fries. We call them French fries. They're really just fried potatoes. Yeah. Papas fritas is what we would call French fries, but they're fried potatoes. Las papas fritas son deliciosas. Son deliciosas.
Drop the
Okay.
L in the S. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So deliciosas needs to look at papas, potatoes, papas, and papas fritas, okay? And actually, fritas is another adjective. It says it means fried, okay? Not boiled, but fried. Yeah, okay. Perezoso means lazy. Los chicos son perezosos. The boys are lazy. We're looking at chicos, and we match up that word perezosos with a masculine form of that word. Los chicos son perezosos. Okay. Perezosos, lazy. Las chicas son muy malas. The girls are very bad. Yeah. Malas looks at chicas, feminine, plural. Malo, the base word for that adjective, ends in an O, so we need to flip it into a feminine form and a plural form. Las chicas son muy malas. Okay. Los estudiantes son buenos. The students are good. Okay. Buenos, bueno ends in an O. We just make it plural, buenos. Okay. And la próxima, I've got to remember, I think it was alemán was our base one there. Oh, sí, alemán. Okay. This next one, I've given you a bunch of examples because there are a bunch of words that do this. This is one of our fuller examples. Alemán means German. And normally, alemán ends in an N, and you would use the same for masculine and plural. But just so you know, adjectives that are nationality adjectives are a little different. For alemán, we do need to turn it into a feminine form because it is a nationality that ends in a consonant. Okay, so la mujer rubia es alemana. The blonde woman is German. Okay, we would need to turn that into alemana, a feminine form, because it is a nationality that ends in a consonant, does not end in O, like Italiano or like Mexicano. Okay, so la mujer rubia es alemana. French, so you know, para que sepan, French, again, also ends in a consonant and would follow the same rule. So for francés, it would become francesa. For español, it would become española. For inglés, English, it would become inglesa. Okay. And these happen because they are nationalities and they end in a consonant. Okay. A lot of nationalities end in O. italiano, chileno, argentino, peruano, bien, okay, but some don't. So just so you know. Okay, los chicos son rubios. The
Rubio.
kids are blonde.
Blonde.
Rubio es blonde. Rubios looks at chicos. Okay, los chicos son rubios. If we got imposible, impossible, las mujeres son imposibles. Women are impossible. Okay, imposibles needs to be plural. It looks at, oh, I've got a more than one
Right.
noun I'm talking about. Okay. Número 14, number 14. Las tareas de biología, biology homework. And it's more than one. Biology homework. Oh, those things, they are easy. Son fáciles. And fácil, easy, looks at the word tareas, plural, to get its correct form, right? Tareas fáciles, okay? But unlike that alemana word, fácil means easy. It's not a nationality. So fácil is going to be the same for masculine, feminine. I just make it plural. Okay. Bueno, 15. Las nubes son grises. The clouds are gray. It's looking at nubes, las nubes, a feminine word, but again, gris, gray, will be the same for masculine and feminine. I just put an es on the end to make it plural. Okay. 16. Los platos españoles son ricos. Spanish dishes, meaning dishes made from recipes that are Spanish. Los platos españoles son ricos. Son ricos, they are rich, they are tasty, they are flavorful, okay? Españoles, it does need a plural form. It's looking at platos. Ricos needs a plural form. It's looking at platos. Okay. Los elefantes son enormes. The elephants are huge,
Huge, yes.
enormous. Yeah, enormes. And I just make that one plural. La hierba, grass that you walk on, right? La hierba es verde, verde stays verde. But when I talk about eyes being of the color green, it becomes los ojos son verdes. Bien, bien, okay. La chica en el uniforme rojo. Oh, this one was a real teaser. La chica en el uniforme rojo es muy atlética. Wait a minute, I'm talking about chica. What happened with that word rojo? Why is that rojo? Because rojo is not talking about the girl. It's talking about the
Uniform.
what she's wearing.
Right.
And we know it's el uniforme. Yeah, but from uniforme, you might not know, but we gave you el uniforme. Okay, so the girl in the red uniform is very athletic. Atletica does look at chica, but rojo looks at the word el uniforme. Okay, bien? Bien? Okay. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? I'm seeing just, did I do them all? Yes, I did them all. Okay. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Any question in that batch of why is it the form it is? Or no? Nada?
I think just trying to get used to it, right? Like that last one was kind of a gotcha. It's the uniform.
The last one was that last one was really, that was tricky on it was meant to be tricky. It was meant to make you really think about what is that, what is each, what noun does each adjective describe, right? In 16, in 16, both adjectives were looking at platos, right? But here, each adjective was actually looking at a different noun. So that makes a difference. Now, this business of using adjectives, it will feel uncomfortable for a while. Will you make mistakes? Well, yes, you will. So, okay. So the important takeaway from adjectives right now is that, ideally, we use the right form for them. But for you guys as beginners, probably the best thing you can do is go on Duolingo and do just a lot of exercises with adjectives and just learn lots of vocabulary. All right. If you get the adjective correct, that is a better goal than to have it always in the correct form. At least if you get the vocabulary word right, yeah, you'll convey the right idea to the person you're speaking to.
Oh.
So, if you've lost your husband or spouse in a crowd and you describe said spouse to someone, busco a mi esposo, busco a mi esposa, it's more important for you to get that description alto correct, right? To get the vocab word right, alto, than it is to get the form exactly right, if you see what I'm saying, yeah? There are two things you're looking at. So the bigger focus is to go on some sites like Duolingo and do little exercises with adjectives to try to accumulate as much adjective vocabulary as you can, to learn more and more words, and some of these are more common than others. With the words they had given you from your book, they were trying to give you words that tourists will use a lot, like expensive and inexpensive, because people ask about prices, yeah, for tall and short, because people might describe buildings they're looking at. To talk about new and old, because again, that's a common word. We use words like new and old a lot, nuevo y viejo. To look at words like short in length and long in length, because when we buy clothes, we want this kind of sleeve or something that is short, right? So corto and largo. To talk about grande y pequeño, big and little. These are words that for tourists we wind up using a little more. Estrecho and ancho, narrow and wide. You get the idea, but learning more and more vocabulary is always helpful. And don't be super concerned if you don't get the form right 100% of the time. Strive to acquire more vocabulary. That is the better thing to work on. Okay. Hay alguna pregunta? Any question there? Sí o no? Because as long as you know, okay, I expect these words will be in different forms, you're in good shape. Okay. We are going to use the rest of our class today to talk about verbs, because that's a big deal. This is a dreaded topic. It is dreaded because English has not that much to compare it to. Yeah. So first of all, we're going to talk about verbs. What are verbs? Verbs are action words. They talk about what people are doing. And a lot of times, really all sentences have to have a noun, a thing you're talking about, and a verb, an action. Yeah. Okay. So little kids, when they learn to talk, might say, bear. You don't know what they want to do with bear, bear on bed. Now give me bear. Yeah. Now we got more context. So the verbs are the action words. They talk about who is doing something or what is doing something. And in all languages, there are action words, verbs, and there are tenses. Oh my God, no. Tenses just tell you the timeline of when that action is happening. So the first tense we generally learn with Spanish is present tense. And if you were learning English, it would likely be the same. Okay. Present tense means happening right now. Okay. It means it's happening right now. But I'm going to show you some other ideas about present tense so you know what we're talking about. In Spanish, the tenses are important, or the verbs are important. The verbs go into what we call conjugations. That means a specific form of the verb. The conjugations do, well, all verbs do basically three things. They tell you what the action is, and that's just the verb itself, tells you what the action is. They tell you who is doing the action. That's why they go into different forms. And they tell you when the action is happening. Verbs have three jobs in Spanish. They tell you what the basic activity is about. They tell you who's doing it, and they tell you when it's happening. And all these are going to be what we call present tense. So I'm going to show you first to get an idea of what we mean by present tense. Well, present tense just means now, basically. But in Spanish, what we're going to start to get used to, and we call present tense, might have more than one job. Okay? Present tense is used often to state facts. So we use this tense we're going to learn that is called present tense to state all kinds of facts. Facts about life, about nature, about people, about anything. Okay? So here's a verb, gira. Gira means, okay, rotates. It means turns. La tierra gira alrededor del sol. The earth rotates, that means it turns or it moves around the sun. So it's just a statement of fact. Present tense, and they furthermore call this an indicative mode. It states things that really do happen. Okay? And you may say, no es obvio, isn't that obvious? Well, no, because in Spanish there's going to be eventually a different mode or mood which describes things that are not so for sure. So present tense, we know one of its jobs is to tell facts, things that really are happening. La tierra gira alrededor del sol. Los argentinos hablan español. It's a fact. Argentines speak Spanish. Okay. Los pájaros vuelan. Birds fly, what they really do. Okay. Not what they may do or might do, what they really do. Okay. Laura es profesora. Laura is a teacher. La mesa está en el salón. The table is in the living room. Okay, salón is just, yeah, sala could change into salón. Salón just makes it a big living room. Okay, putting an on the end. So it talks about facts, things that really happen. Present tense can also be used to talk about habitual actions or events. Things that usually happen, that generally happen, okay? So when we talk about frequency right now, right? Yo juego al fútbol 2 veces por semana. I play soccer twice a week. What I generally do, what I usually do, what I do most of the time. If I say 2 veces a la semana, it's 2 times a week. I'm giving like a pattern for how often. Okay. Mis amigos trabajan en una oficina. My friends work in an office. It's what they usually do most days, okay? Nosotros viajamos a México todos los veranos. We travel to Mexico every summer. What we usually do as a part of our habitual cycle of activities. Okay, so we can use present tense to talk about habits or general, usual activities. We can also use it to talk about things that are happening at the moment. That means what's going on right now. So this is how we think of present tense in English. What is happening now? Present tense can carry that, right? If I say I play twice a week, I talk about my habit. But if I talk, if somebody wants to ask, what are you doing? Okay. And notice in English, we say, what are you doing? Ing. What are you doing? Yeah. Present tense can convey this idea of ing. I'm driving to work. I'm cooking today. My husband's not cooking. I'm doing the cooking today. I'm riding my bike later on. Yeah, okay. Present tense can have this connotation in Spanish. ¿Qué haces? What are you doing? Lavo los platos. I'm washing the dishes. ¿Qué hace Ana? What is Ana doing? Ella baila con un chico. She's dancing with a boy. So this is the idea of what is happening right now. Present tense can convey that idea. Okay. What you maybe didn't consider is this one. Present tense in Spanish can be used to imply something that will happen kind of soon, near future. Okay. So sometimes we use present tense in Spanish, even though it means right now, to talk about what will happen soon. So in other words, I won't use present tense to talk about what's going to happen 50 years from now, yeah, or next year. Too far. But soon, right? Mañana, so you'll get the idea. Some of our other words will give us context for that soon. Mañana como en casa de mi abuela. Tomorrow I eat at grandma's house. So you might say in English, tomorrow I'm going to eat at grandma's house. And we could just use present in Spanish to say that idea, right? Tomorrow I'm eating at grandma's house. We can just use present tense, como, to convey that idea. Or this second example here. Nosotros empezamos un curso de español el mes que viene. Next month is kind of soon. It's not next year. It's just next month. Okay. We start, or you might say in English, we're starting a Spanish course next month. We're starting, or we start. Okay. We can use present tense for near future. Okay. So those are some contexts of how we use present tense. Okay. Bien. Let's take a look. Oh, pregunta, question?
No.
No? Okay.
Bien.
Okay. Bien. Now this one, don't feel you got to copy this down because I will send you this whole next thing. It's going to come to you in an email. So don't feel you got to copy it down wildly. Okay. I'm going to send you this. It's like it's not a spreadsheet. They're little charts. They're little charts. Okay. And the videos I had sent you to watch basically have these same charts. These charts are infamous for people who learn Spanish. Spanish in general, if we're talking about regular verbs, that means they are verbs that follow a specific pattern. And if I know the base form for that verb, and we call the base form the infinitive, if you know the base form and you know that it's a regular verb, you can use it. You know what endings you have to use. They'll follow a predictable pattern. That's what it means to be a regular verb. They will use predictable standard forms to talk about various people. So remember, I told you that the verbs talk about what the action is, who's doing it. This is what we're going to focus on now. Who's doing it? and when it's being done. Well, we know when it's being done. That's present tense. So now we're just looking at these two. We're looking at what the verb means, what the action means, and who's doing it. The verb in Spanish tells the whole story. It tells you who's doing something. Okay? And a lot of times we're going to leave off the who part of it because the verb tells you everything you need to know. Okay? Okay. AR verbs, Spanish, the base form, the infinitive. Okay? In English, we use the word to with the activity. To eat, to drink, to spit, to walk, to drive, to work, to wash, yeah, to write, to listen to. Those are all activities, but we have to always use the word to in English, okay? In Spanish, the equivalent of to listen, to work, to walk is this idea of this ending. It will not have the word to, but it will use an AR ending or an ER ending or an IR ending. Those are three categories of verbs. There are three categories, three basic types of infinitives, okay, in Spanish. And if they are AR verbs and regular, they will follow very predictable patterns, okay? In all of these patterns, when you want to use the AR verb, you first have to get rid of the AR ending. Just like we get rid of the word to, nobody says, I to walk to the neighbors, I to walk. No, it's I walk to the neighbors, or you might say, I'm walking to the neighbors, okay? And we have to get rid of that word to. Well, just like we get rid of the to word in English, we have to get rid of the AR ending from the AR verb, you know? So for the verb word caminar, to walk, caminar, we get rid of the AR first. To say that I am doing an action, we take off the AR, we slap on an O. So caminar would become camino. Yeah.
Camino.
And camino, most people will not say, yo camino a la casa. I'm walking to the house. They will not say, yo camino. They'll leave off the yo. Because camino only matches up with that human being who is yo. Okay? So automatically, only by using camino, you know who I'm talking about. And so right now, we're pairing up yo with the verb, but just so that you know, most people will drop that word yo because camino automatically says, oh, I'm doing it. So people will not bother with the word I. You can't do that in English. Walk to the neighbor's house. Who? Walk to the neighbor's house. It doesn't help. Walks to the neighbor's house. Who? Yeah. In Spanish, they drop that subject pronoun a lot. But we're pairing them up now so that you can make a mental match of that. Okay, so if I am doing the action, the ending is o, camino. This o is not the infamous masculine o, like chico, like perro, doggy, like carro, car. This does not mean masculine singular. This is not being used for a noun. It is the verb ending o. All right, so it's important to distinguish. Every time you hear the sound doesn't necessarily mean you're talking about a noun. Paired up with a verb means I'm doing it. Camino, okay? Camino. All right, because they are AR verbs, this sound from the AR is going to pop up a lot in the other non-yo forms. So the next conjugation or form is as. And here's what we use if I want to talk to you, a friendly you. So if the subject is tú, you, somebody I am comfortable with calling by your first name, okay? So caminar would become caminas. Caminas, okay? Caminas. You're walking. Caminas a la casa del vecino. You're walking to the neighbor's house. Caminas a la casa de la vecina or del vecino. Okay, caminas, you're walking. Now, for right now, we want you to know that tú matches up with caminas. But most people will get rid of tú and just say caminas. Okay? If you need to pair them up for now to match them, that's a-okay. So you get comfortable with it. Okay. Yo camino is called first person singular. I'm talking about myself and I'm by my lonesome self. Tú caminas is called second person because I'm talking to you, just one of you. Okay. These three subject pronouns, él or ella or usted, fall into the category they call third person. I know, usted really means you, but it's the formal you. So if we're talking about only one person doing the action, or the formal you, right? If it's a guy, él, he. If it's a gal, ella, she, any gal. If it's usted, the formal you, all three of those use the same kind of AR verb. They use the same kind of verb form, right? Él, he, is not the same person as ella, she, is not the same person as you, formal you. They just fall into that category of third person because they talk about one person by themselves. And they'll use just that sound from the AR, the naked vowel just hanging out by itself. So caminar becomes camina. Okay, so if I'm talking only about one person, it might be María camina a la casa del vecino. She's walking to the neighbor's house. It could be Martín camina a la casa del vecino. Martín is walking to the neighbor's house. Okay. And this is not that feminine of the noun world. This is the from the verb world. Yeah. So this does not mean feminine. I can say Martín camina. Martín is walking. Martin is walking. That camina has nothing to do with feminine. It's an for an AR verb. Okay. So just so you make sure, we have to divorce these words from what you learned about nouns. This is not a masculine thing. It's a verb ending. This is not a feminine thing. It's a verb ending because it's an AR verb kind of ending. So these are all singular. Yo, talking about myself, first person. Tú, talking to you, friendly way, right? Second person. Third person, right? Talking about one human being. So if a verb is an AR verb and regular, it's going to use one of these things, okay? Now, for the él or ella, usted, somebody may use a pronoun or may use an actual name because this form goes with there are a lot of possibilities, right? anytime I'm talking about any one person. So you may hear a human being matched up with this verb, but you're not likely to hear tú all the time. You're not likely to hear yo all the time. You'll hear just the verb most of the time, okay? So be prepared for that. Okay, those are all the singular verbs, singular forms. If an AR verb, like caminar, talks about more than one human being, we have to look back to that idea of, is it first person, talking about myself? Is it second person? Ooh, they'll only use that one in Spain, so we're going to kind of ignore that. That's the you guys. Or is it third person? And this could be you guys, yeah? So these, the reason we got these charts is one side, a la izquierda, all on the left, it all talks about just one human being. And the other side, a la derecha, on the right, all talks about more than one human being, okay? If I am doing the action, but I have people with me, one person with me, 15 people with me, doesn't matter. It's the same thing as saying we, nosotros, okay? So if I have people with me, right, I become plural, I become nosotros, the idea of nosotros. And the verb form we use is amos. Again, we're looking at that AR verb and we're plugging that sound into it. But anytime you hear a mos, it means a we verb. It means a we verb. So, amos. Caminar will become caminamos. Okay. In Spain, they would use camináis for you guys, but Latin America doesn't use that. So we're going to skip over that from now. If I want to talk about a group, a bunch of guys, a bunch of gals, a mixed group, guys and gals, or you guys plural, I need to make it what they call third person plural, meaning I keep that sound for the AR verb, but I tag on a n sound. An. Caminan. Ellos, they, caminan a la escuela. They walk to school. Ellas, they, all gal group, caminan a la escuela. If I'm talking to a bunch of kids saying, hey, you guys, ustedes caminan a la escuela. You guys are walking to school, okay? So AR verbs go heavy on that sound with the forms that the verbs use, okay? But yo form gets an O. Just like yo ends in O, the verb form will be an O. Okay, bien. Bien. Let's take a look at different kinds of AR verbs. Different kinds of AR verbs. So we got two things going on, kind of like with the adjectives. And the two things going on are, you got to know what that infinitive even means. What that base form, not changed, means. What activity does it mean? You have a vocabulary issue. You have to know what that signifies, and then we'll work into what are the forms of that verb, what are the conjugations. We got the vocabulary side of the verbs, and we got the form conjugation side of the verbs. So let's take a look at what we're going to look at, what some common actions are, what people tend to use frequently. And I have to limit myself to regular verbs. Okay. Hablar. So we paired these up with pictures. I'm going to send you this whole thing so you can keep it forever. Okay. Hablar, to speak. Okay. Repitan, por favor. Hablar. Hablar.
Hablar.
Hablar. Remember, we ignore that H. So, yo hablo, tú hablas, ¿sí? Ella habla, Maria habla, Maria talks, right? Jorge, George, Jorge habla, Carlos habla, usted habla. But if I put myself in a group, it can no longer be hablo. It becomes hablamos.
Hablamos.
Hablamos, okay? And if I talk about Carlos y María hablan. Carlos y María hablan. Or ustedes, all of you, ustedes hablan. Bien? Okay? So when I start to use hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan, I'm automatically tell you that the action is and who's doing it. Okay? Okay, bien. Let's take a look at another common word that, ooh, wow, that tourists need to use. Viajar. 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 To travel. If you want to think, what are ways we can remember that this means travel? Oh, we travel via.
Okay.
Oh, that might help you remember. You might remember that there's a term we sometimes borrow from French. Bon voyage, voyage. Voyage comes from that. A voyage is a trip, isn't it? So, viajar. But remember, we don't say viajar. Yeah, it's viajar. That J, that J sounds like a an H. Viajar. Okay. But if I want to actually use viajar to talk about a person, I need to first take off that AR. And I go through viajo, viajo, tú, viajas, right? If I talk about this gal, la mujer viaja, see? If I put myself in a group, la mujer y yo, the woman and I, once I inject myself in the group, it becomes a mos thing. Viajamos, right? If I talk about a group, los chicos viajan. The kids are traveling. Los chicos viajan. Bien? Okay. So we take off that AR first. Okay, to travel. There are two verbs that mean to walk. Why? I don't know, but there are. And sometimes in one region or one country, they prefer one of these words more than the other. Not really a big deal. Just know that there are two verbs that mean to walk. They might use caminar or andar. Okay? Andar also means to walk. They're synonyms. Okay? Okay. So let's take andar, since that's a short one, right? Andar. We get rid of the AR off of andar first. And we've got just and, right? Ando.
No, ando.
Tú andas, right? Luisa anda. Juan anda. Usted anda, right? But if I put myself in the group, it's
Andamos.
andamos. And if I talk about these two ladies here in the picture, en la foto, ellas, they andan.
Andan.
Yeah?
Andan.
Andan. Yeah. Okay. Now, by this time you may say, okay, there are two things that are important. To know what the actual verb means, right? That andar might mean to walk, or caminar might mean to walk, and to know who is doing it. What if I get that who's doing it part wrong? Well, okay, sometimes you will, because again, it takes time to get used to it. More important to know that these words talk about activities for right now, okay? Because from time to time, you'll get the ending wrong. But that also begs the question, as my very smart 15-year-olds in high school used to ask, oh, this is so tedious. I have to learn all these different forms. This is tedious. We don't do this. We say walk and walks, walk and walks. Why don't they do that? Well, they just don't. Get used to it. Okay. But they would say, well, does it really matter? If I get it wrong, who cares? They'll understand me. But the sad fact is no. Then they say, if you get it wrong, they're like, well, who's doing it? They'll be clear on what you're at, the activity you're talking about, but they won't be clear about who's doing it. Who are you talking about? They won't know unless you get that part right. So it's a double-edged sword. We got to know both edges of the sword. It's one of those things. So let's look at more AR verbs. By the way, AR verbs are the biggest category. If you say that there are AR verbs and ER verbs and IR verbs, the AR verbs, that's the biggie. Probably like 60, maybe even 70% of all the action words are ARs. So if you got to learn anything, this is it. Okay. So, okay, let's look at escuchar. Escuchar is an AR verb that's regular. Escuchar, to listen to. So now we're going to speed up a little bit and maybe not do every single form, but just look at different verbs and what they mean. Escuchar, to listen to. And this to is built into the verb. It's built in. Okay. I don't need an extra word to necessarily, right? I can just say, ella escucha la música. She listens to music. I don't say ella escucha a la música. The a, no. Just ella escucha la música. Or ella escucha música. ¿Bien? Okay. Comprar, to buy. This is a survival word when you want to buy something. Comprar. Comprar, right? Comprar, to buy. And all of these, when we wind up using them, they will take off the AR. They will take off the AR when we tell who is doing it, okay? Comprar, to buy. Muy importante. This one is really important because this verb is used to ask, how do I get to a place? It means to arrive or to get to, and it is called llegar. Remember, the double L sounds like a y. Llegar, llegar, llegar. See? Yeah. If I talk about they are getting to the airport, ellos llegan, llegan, I'm talking about more than one, llegan al aeropuerto. Okay, yeah. All right, let's take a look at this one. Usar, yay, it's a cognate. It looks like a word you know. It does mean use. Usar, usar, to use. La mujer usa la computadora. Por ejemplo, okay. Bailar. To dance. Bailar. I take off the AR to say they dance. Ellos bailan. Bailan. Na. Okay. And at the end means more than one. Muy importante. Pagar. Pagar. To pay. To pay somebody, something. Yeah. And this is how you will often hear this. If somebody is a clerk in a store, a cashier, they may ask, ¿Cómo paga usted? How are you paying? Because they want to know if you're paying with cash or with a card. ¿Cómo paga usted? ¿Con efectivo o con tarjeta? Are you paying with cash, efectivo, o con tarjeta, with a card? And con tarjeta, they mean debit or credit. They usually don't care because they're both cards. Yeah. Con tarjeta, with a card. Okay. Bien. Let's take a look at more because AR verbs, there are tons of them. Here's an important verb. Ayudar, to help. Ayudar.
Ayudar.
Ayudar, to help. Okay. Yo ayudo, tú ayudas. El hombre ayuda. Nosotros ayudamos. Los hombres ayudan. Na means more than one. Okay. Estudiar. It's yeah, to study. Now notice one important thing with estudiar. When I get rid of the AR, I still have this E sound hanging off the end. That stays. That little vowel I from estudiar, E-E-E-D, that stays there. We only get rid of the AR at the end. So it becomes estudio, estudio, estudias, la chica estudia, estudiamos, los estudiantes estudian. Okay, so it's important to know what happens with that. Okay, a ver. Here's one that's kind of a cognate. It looks like necessary, and that means you need something. Necesitar. Necesitar. Many times you may find yourself wanting to say, I need something. I need help. I need your help. Right? I need a bank. Yeah, I need something. Necesitar. So, wow, that is a really long word, but necesitar, right? Necesito, necesitas. El chico necesita dinero. He needs money. Nosotros necesitamos. Los chicos necesitan dinero. Okay. Bien. So it will go on to all those forms. Ooh, let's take a look at a few more. Here's a fun word. To work. Not the kind of work for machines work. This talks about not like a car or a watch or a computer working. It talks about people working, human beings working, or if you have animals working in the field, like God forbid horses with a plow, but okay, that could be a human or, you know, a living being working. That's trabajar. Trabajar. So it's yo trabajo. Tú trabajas. Mi amigo trabaja. Right? Nosotros trabajamos. Okay. Las cuatro personas trabajan. Trabajan. Okay, trabajan. Okay, and here's another one that tourists may need to use, because a lot of times we as tourists, we have to wait. And a lot of times you might want to say, oh, I'm waiting for the bus. I'm waiting for the plane. I'm waiting for the tour group. Yeah. And that word is esperar. And esperar actually has more than one definition. Esperar sometimes can mean to hope, but it also means to wait for. And the for is built into that verb, esperar. Right? So it becomes espero, esperas, espera, esperamos. Los pacientes esperan. The patients are waiting. Bien? Okay. Bien. So those are all sample words. We're going to use these in a minute. What I want to show you is that the most is always going to indicate I'm in the group. The amos just means it's an AR verb. Yeah. Okay. The S at the end means a tú verb. The N at the end means a they verb. That will be consistent, whether it's an AR verb or an ER verb or an IR verb. So let's practice with some AR verbs first, just to get the forms right. Okay. Is this big enough for you guys to see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
See.
So I'm going to ask you to change a form. We've got one example. It says conjugate the verb according to who does the action, okay? And then we're going to tell what it means. Okay, so hablar, there's the base form, right? But if I want to use it with tú, it has to become hablas. Hablas, we're going to take it one step further, what it means. Hablas can mean you speak, you do speak, you are speaking. It can mean, right, where we would use any of those ideas in English, we use hablas. Okay, okay. Bueno, Kevin, take a go at usar.
Uso, for yo.
Usa,
Uso,
usa,
uso.
uso. And what would uso mean? What would we say in English for that idea?
I use.
Use.
I use. It might also be used to say, I am using, right?
Okay.
Like
Okay.
right now or soon,
Uso.
right? See? So, right, English might use either one of these ideas. We just use this in Spanish, uso. You can say it as yo uso. Is it wrong to include the yo? No, but typically people will drop the word yo. Okay. Bien, bien, bien. Okay. Necesitar, necesitar. Tanya, see if you can take that one. If I'm talking about mi amigo, my buddy, my friend, how would I say he?
Necesitas.
Necesita. Okay, now
Necesitas.
I'm talking about him, not to him.
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
him.
Mi amigo,
Is necesita.
necesita,
Necesita.
necesita, necesita, necesita. Mi amigo necesita. I might need the mi amigo there because necesita pertains to anybody who's just one person. Yeah. So I could say Jose necesita. I could say Manuel necesita. I could say el presidente necesita, right? I could combine it with any one human being. Necesita. And that would mean my friend needs. Do we say is needing? No, we don't do that. How do you explain that to somebody? I don't know. We just say needs, okay? Or my friend will need something. Ooh, comprar. Nosotros. Pam, give that a try.
How about nosotros compramos?
Compramos. Nosotros compramos. You can use the nosotros. Most people will tend to drop it, but it's okay to use nosotros. Compramos. And what would we say in
no.
English?
What is that? Buying? All right. We buy.
We buy or we are buying, right? We're buying. Yeah, that's what it would mean. Okay, let's do just a couple more and then I'm going to leave the rest of these for you to do for homework. Pagar, to pay. Ustedes. How do I change that into a form that's for ustedes? Kevin, give that a go.
Done?
Oh, perdón. Yeah. Pagan. Pagan.
Yeah.
This is not the word pagan. Pagan. Yeah. Pagan. Pagan. And what would we say in English to convey that idea? We would say, you guys
Are paying?
are paying. Yeah. You guys are paying. You all pay. Okay. Okay. Bien. Vale. Viajar. Tú.
Viajas.
Viajas?
Viajas. Viajas. You can say tú viajas. People will drop the tú. Viajas. And what would that mean?
Travel.
Yeah,
You're traveling.
That's right.
You travel.
you are traveling, reading you're doing it right now, or you travel. So this idea of habitually, you might say, oh, you travel in the summer, meaning you do it all the time, or you are traveling right now, right? Present tense can convey either one of these. We're going to do one more because this one is important. Llegar, llegar, yo.
Llego.
Llego.
Llego. Yeah,
Llego. Llego. Llego.
Llego.
Yo
Oh,
llego, or just by itself, llego. And that means I'm
arriving.
arriving. Okay, I'm arriving or I arrive. A lot of times, however, this is used with the idea of I'm getting there, and I'm going to give you
Hmm.
an idea of how we use that. Llego a la oficina a las 8. I get to the office at 8
Hey,
o'clock. A las 8. Bien. Llego a las 8. I get there at 8. Yes, I arrive at 8 and I get there. This is often used in the question when you're lost and you don't know how to get somewhere. You may need to ask the question. Ooh, I can't get my punctuation marks to come up here. Okay. Como llego a, and then we need a place.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now when I don't need it, okay. Punctuation is the worst thing with different language keywords. Okay. Como llego a asks the question, how do I get to? When you want to say, how do I get to a place? This is the verb you use. Como llego al aeropuerto? How do I get to the airport? Como llego al hotel Hilton? How do I get to the Hilton airport? Como llego a la parada de taxis? How do I get to the taxi stand? Yeah. Como llego al museo? How do I get to the museum? Okay. Como llego a? How do I get to? That's what we use. Okay. I'm going to have you practice the rest of these for homework. Okay. Maybe we're going to take a look at ER verbs next. ER verbs. ER verbs and IR verbs are a smaller piece of the pie. That's why we spent more time with the AR verbs. But there are a fair number of ER verbs. There is the smallest number of the three belongs to that IR verb category. Okay. ER verbs and IR verbs generally share the same kind of endings, but they split off when we go to nosotros, the we form, and they split off in Spain if you use the vosotros form. Okay, so I'm going to show you what that is when I send you this chart. Whoops, I need to put my chart. Oh, you are on the chart. See, but just know that those two areas split off. Okay. Bien. Okay. Yay! The ending for yo is still Yay! Don't need to learn anything different. But yeah, this vowel is going to rule most of the time. This vowel in the other endings is going to take over most of the time. Not all of the time, right? That S at the end will mean tú, but it'll be an es, right? The naked vowel will be hanging out there just for one human being. Not a, but e.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. To talk about they, a group of people, you're talking about them, or the you guys, plural, ustedes, it'll be en. Notice the pattern. And N at the end means more than one human being is doing the action. Oh, the N at the end, I'm not in the group. I'm talking about a group of people. Or I can use this for you guys. And for the we category, for ER verbs, it's hemos. But for IR verbs, they're going to split off and do their own vowel and change into hemos. Okay? Hemos. So IR verbs we'll play nice with ER verbs and do the same thing, except when we use our nosotros form. Okay, and then IR verbs are going to go off and do a separate kind of conjugation. Does that make sense to you? See?
No.
Yeah. Okay, let's, and again, this is going to take time to get used to, guys, but let's take a look at what some common ER and IR verbs are like. Okay. And IR gets a little funky because there are a lot of IR verbs that wind up being irregular for various reasons, but let's get used to the vocabulary end of it. And again, you'll get this whole set of files. Comer,
To eat.
to eat. Comer, comer, right? So, como,
Como.
tú comes. If I talk about la mujer, the woman, ella come, come, not coma, come, right? She's eating. Nosotros comemos, comemos, mos says I'm in the group, but it's hemos because it's an ER verb, hemos, right? And los chicos comen, the kids are eating, comen. Bien, okay. Leer, to read. Yo leo, tú lees. And notice when we get rid of the ER first, we still have this A hanging up. We have to include that A. La chica lee. It's got a double E because this E hangs with the first part that we keep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lee. La chica lee el libro. The girl is reading the book, right? Nosotros leemos. Los chicos leen. The kids read. Okay. Comprender. To understand. Actually, you wind up using this other verb to mean understand, entender more, but that's an irregular verb. So we're going to focus on comprender. Yeah, entender is a troublemaker a little bit. Entender. So we're going to look at comprender. Comprendo.
Prendo.
Tú comprendes,
Yes.
right? Ella comprende, right? Nosotros comprendemos. Ellos comprenden. Or ustedes, you guys, comprenden. Bien? So you have to listen carefully for all those verb sounds. Aquí vamos, here we go. Let's look at some more common ER verbs. And you'll practice some of this week, right? Vender, to sell. Think of a vending machine. Yeah. Vender, to sell. Responder, to respond. It's a cognate. It means what you think it does. Ooh, beber, to drink. Can be used with water, often used with alcohol, often used for alcohol, but it can mean for water too. Beber, beber. Oh, let's look at some IR verbs. There are fewer I can use because there are a lot of oddball verbs in that IR category, but common ones that people use a lot if they're beginner students. Vivir. Vivir, to live. Abrir, to open. Abrir, think abracadabra. Yeah, yeah. Abrir, to open.
Yeah.
Escribir,
Right.
to write. Yeah. Escribir. Our word scribe, person who writes down information, comes from that old Latin thing that is escribir, turned into that. Okay. And I'm going to leave this whole thing for you to practice this week. So again, and we'll do one together. I'll ask you to conjugate that verb, responder. If you want to talk about Luisa, it becomes Luisa responde. And in English, we would say Luisa responds, or she answers, or she is responding. She's answering somebody, right? Yeah. So let's do one together. We're going to do the easy, give me one. Together, right? Yo.
Bebo.
Bebo.
You know?
And you can just say it as bebo, right?
Bebo.
I drink. I'm drinking. That's what it will mean. So that's what I want you to finish up and do for the week.
Okay.
Bien? Good?
Bien.
Sí, sí? Bien?
Sí.
Okay. Bien. Here we go. I am going to give you, I want to wrap up and preview one thing to get you ready for homework. We're going to jump around a little bit in the book. This week, I want you to look at those 2 verb slides with the pictures that I'm going to send you in the email. I want you to really get comfortable with the vocabulary side of what do these verbs mean, okay? And practice a few forms of those verbs with what I give you at the bottom of the picture pages, okay? Bien. I'm also going to give you one extra verb. I'm going to give you actually, a couple of websites to practice the different verb forms. Talking about your book. So get familiar with those verbs, what they mean, the base verb form of the verb, which we call the infinitive. And from you're going to jump around just a little bit. From chapter 9 in the book, I want you to take a look at some of these, only some of chapter 9. Oh, yeah, okay. Sí, bien. We're going to look at a couple of irregular verbs, but one is super important. And the verb that is super important in this chapter is going to be ir, to go. Ir is going to be very, very irregular. But we use to go so many times that when I send you this big chart, look at what's the last verb that you're going to have in this chart. It's ir, to go. Ir is a survival verb because when you travel, how many times do you have to say, I'm going to the airport, I'm going to the store, I'm going somewhere. Where are you going? Oh, we want to go. Oh, to go. This is a verb you absolutely have to know. And sadly, ir is not like these things in the top chart. Ir is very irregular, like ser was irregular, like estar is irregular, like tener is irregular. And if I take away the IR, what I have left? A whole lot of nothing. If I operate on that idea of, I look at the base form, tener, trabajar, estar, I take off the AR, the ER, the IR, I take off the IR, I got nothing. So this is very irregular, but all of the ir verbs start with the letter be, but remember, it'll sound like a B in boy, yeah? So I want to preview what the forms of ir are, and I'm going to give you a video to listen to over the weekend that uses just ir, okay? It's a super important verb for you guys to know. So it's very irregular, but I want you to notice it's going to wind up sounding a little bit like these forms did with estar, all right? Voy, yo voy, tú vas, él, ella, or usted uses va, vamos, vais they use just in Spain for you guys, and ellos van, ellas van, ustedes van. I'm going to send you a little thing. Here's the thing you need to know. Ir, it's not a good thing to do. Ir is usually going to be followed by this little word, which means to. Because when we use this word in a sentence, we always want to say where we're going to. We're going to the hotel, we're going to the museum, we're going to the airport. Yeah. So do know that generally after voy, vas, va, vamos, or van, you're going to hear the word a. And then you're going to hear a place. Vamos al gimnasio. We're going to the gym. Vas al hotel. Are you going to the hotel? Voy al hospital. I'm going to the hospital. Oh, God forbid. Voy al hospital. Right? Any of those forms, voy, vas, va, vamos, van, it's going to be followed by a and a place. Okay? Just so that you know. And I'm going to send you a video to watch about that verb ir, because it is super, super, super important, even though it does not belong in this family of regular verbs. So you are going to get this big chart on all the different forms. You're going to get the picture page to try, and sometimes a visual helps you match up what the activity is talking about, right? AR verbs, you're going to get the picture page about the ER verbs, and see if you can do some of these exercises at the bottom, right? That is, see if you can use some of the conjugations. You're only going to be going through part of that chapter that has ir at the end, right? But do try to get comfortable with ir, and the practice video will help you a lot, because you'll hear that example a lot over and over and over again. And that's really all I want you to work on. Next week, we're going to keep working with just these verbs, okay? The verbs that are in the AR category, the ER and IR categories, and the IR verbs. We're going to work on all of those, and we're going to build some basic sentences. Make some sense here? ¿Sí?
Sí.
¿Sí? ¿Tiene sentido? ¿Sí? Bien.
Sí.
Okay. Okay. Vale. Bien. So you'll get a lot of materials, and hopefully by next week you'll feel actually you're doing pretty well with doing the conjugations already. But it does take time, so be patient with yourself on how we use those. Bien. Do you want one extra page on just AR verbs to practice forms some more? Or is that too much?
No,
Sí. No.
practice.
See? Okay, I'm going to show you what this is going to look like, because I want to use some more interactive ones. And besides that, this will tell you if you're right or wrong.
Okay.
I'm going to send you to this page, and they're going to have a little story. It's going to be just AR verbs, because that's the biggest category. And they give you like a word bank at the top, so that you know what the basic words mean. Okay? And then they're going to ask you, take this word llamar and put it in a form to talk about yo. They didn't put the yo in. But you know it's yo because it's got a me in front of it. Me llamo Celia Castillo. My name is Celia Castillo. And now she's going to talk about herself, but she'll start to talk about other people. Yo soy cubana. I'm Cuban. Y esta es una foto de mi clase. This is a photo of my classroom. I study. Yo
Estudio.
Yeah, estudio. So you're going to type these in. When you get to the bottom, you're going to ask it to correct. And it'll tell you if you're right. Okay? Bien?
How many chances do we get?
Yeah. So this is great because it lets you practice. And look, then it'll give you another little batch of words, and you can correct them. And another little batch of words and correct them. So do, however, spend some time, like, okay, you're going to have, here's another really super important verb that's good for you guys to know, buscar, to look for, because as tourists, we often need to say, I'm looking for something, right? Buscar means looking for. So these are all of these words are super helpful. And super common. Well, maybe not get a grade because you're not a student. Maybe not sacar una nota, but the other ones are super useful kind of verbs to know. So I will send you that website so you can use that to practice. Okay, bien. And maybe
Yeah.
have your little chart at the side and then here practice what the verb form would be. That'll give you some practice. And then when we get to class next week, we're going to keep using this and in a little different way. But again, you're going to be actually practicing these verbs. Okay, está bien? Good.
Bien.
Sí.
Bien.
Excelente. So we're going to see if we can plug this in a more interactive way for you guys next week. And we'll move on from there. Okay, ¿vale?
Ahí. Bien.
Excelente, excelente. Ustedes sí hicieron bien. You guys did well. Okay, entonces nos vemos la semana que viene. We'll see you next week.
Oiga.
Gracias.
Hola.
De nada, es un placer, es un placer. Nos vemos. We'll see you guys later.